Welcome to the verse.
What's up, guys? We got an awesome interview today with Fashioncoder. We're going to be talking a little bit about pulse chain, ERC20s, and some interoperability. How you doing today?
I'm doing so well. How are you?
Doing great. I'm really excited to be interviewing today, and thanks for hopping on.
Oh yeah, thanks for having me. This will be great.
Absolutely. So, just kind of starting off, I'm really curious about kind of like your background. So, what first got you into cryptocurrency?
So my dad actually was the one that introduced me to it, which was super awesome. He's been my crypto mentor since the very beginning, but I do have a background in computer science. And so I've always wondered, like, would I have found crypto on my own? Because I've been in the tech world for a while. And so I don't know, but my dad was the one that introduced me and I've been a part of it ever since.
Oh, awesome. What was his first project you invested in? You don't have to leak that if you don't want to.
Oh, I'll totally tell you. So I bought Ethereum and I was so nervous. I bought it and then I had to wait a week until I could trade it out into other things. Okay. And I was like, no, like there's these other projects that I want to get into, like Cardano and like all of these other ones. Okay. And so I had to leave it and it doubled in the first week. And so like, yeah. So I was like, okay, I totally believe in crypto. Like, this is awesome. And so even though I was so nervous, like that whole week that the coins that I wanted to get into were going to be higher, I ended up doubling my money right off the bat anyways. And so yeah, so Ethereum was the first one. What was your first coin?
Oh, my first coin was actually Dogecoin.
Oh,
So my buddy showed me and he's like, hey, there's a dog coin and you can buy it on the what's that Robinhood app before they had the whole scandal. And
yep.
I bought $10 worth of it and I saw the thing go up to like I think it was like $100. I was like, what
Wow.
is this? And
Yeah.
then I started going bananas in the research and looked at Ethereum. And then the second coin I invested in was actually Hex, believe it or not.
Oh, okay. That's great.
Yeah, so I got really lucky in that aspect. So speaking of Hex, what when did you first come across Hex and what got you so interested in the community?
Yeah, so also my dad, I basically blindly followed him for a very long time. And now I feel like we're more collaborative on things that we do. But like even 2 nights ago, he was helping me like put in limit or orders into my like Hotbit account. And so I definitely like still do everything with him, but I like have my own side of things that I bring to the table now. But yeah, so he was the one that got me into it and he had invested into it maybe like a year before I did. So he was, one of the earlier people that invested, which is awesome for him. I definitely was not. But yeah, so I thought it was really cool just what he told me about it of, their code's finished and it's a certificate of deposit. And so it seemed like there was a lot of utility to it, which was interesting because a lot of coins I didn't see utility for. So that was probably like the first like green flag that I had for it.
Absolutely. It's so interesting how you had a project like that introduced the concept of inflation, but through those time locks, what drove the price up? Because most of the time when you hear the word inflation, it's kind of like a trigger word for, oh, that's a bad thing, especially nowadays and what's going on in the world. We don't have to go into it. But yeah, but the mechanics behind it and the utility behind it's pretty phenomenal. So definitely really cool. So, what are your thoughts on the Pulse chain with the upcoming launch? And do you think Pulse chain's utility can compete with other layer one blockchains?
So I think it can. Something that I really like about the pulsechain.com website is it goes in and it talks about how Pulse Chain is actually here to help Ethereum. I think a lot of people see it in a way as like, okay, Pulse Chain versus Ethereum. And in the website, it very blatantly states that it's really just here to take some of the load off of Ethereum. And so I think it really does have the opportunity to compete, but really honestly just more be a helping hand of offloading a lot of time and energy into it. So I think it's going to be great. And the fact that there is the airdrop, I think that will bring a lot of people over to it because, you know, you have these free coins and that is a great way to market.
So I want to break that down a little bit. So there's a lot of layer one blockchains that are kind of doing something similar to Pulsion. So I'm going to take an example. There's one called XDC or XFIN. And for those guys who don't know, XFIN offers something called a XFIN POS. And basically it has a 2,000 transactions per second through validators. And the one thing they have within the blockchain is they can easily exchange and convert projects straight over from Ethereum to XDC. So in your opinion, when you have like super blockchains like XDC or Volus has like 70,000 TBS, do you still think like Pulsion can compete up with that type of utility in the aspect of transaction time and speed and scalability?
Yeah. So I think that it will be able to. Richard posted a tweet a couple of weeks ago that they were moving some of their code over to Go. So it was currently in Solidity and they're moving it to Go. And so I actually did an analysis on both of the languages because I was really curious of, you know, why would you change? Just with my own experience, it takes a lot of time to change code. And so I did a deep dive of researching both of them, and Go is actually really cool. So with Solidity, you have the operating system, which is just like the base layer of function for a computer. So it's going to be, you know, Windows or Mac OS or, you know, anything like that. With Solidity, they add another layer, which is a virtual machine. So it's the Ethereum virtual machine. And then everything that happens is that top layer. So it has to go through the virtual machine to get to the operating system. Now, what Go does, and this is what the Pulse chain is moving towards on a few things, is it removes that second layer. So instead of having to go through a virtual machine, it just is able to hit the operating system immediately. So that was one huge benefit of using Go. And so that's one of the reasons why I think, yes, it is going to be something that can compete. And then the second reason, looking at it from a coding perspective, is there's something called Go recursion. And what that is there's this multitasking that happens within just honestly any language. So that's called threading. Now it compared Go recursion and threading to each other, and Go recursion was 250 times faster than just normal threading, which, like, to my mind, like, that is boggling, because when I was in my computer science degree, we were taught that threading was really good and really fast. And now we have something that does it 250 times faster. So, like, yeah. I read that and I was like, are you serious? Like, why isn't everyone using this? So those are two reasons why I do think it will be faster and it will be able to compete. And then also with having the 250 times faster with this multiple like recursion, you're able to have a lot of scalability to millions and millions and millions of transactions because it's so fast. So from a technical perspective, I definitely think that it will be able to keep up.
Yeah, well, based on what you're saying, I definitely do believe you in that concept when it comes to threading using Go. I think if that were the case, do you think Pulse Chain would not need any side chains? Because theoretically, if every project were to move to like just one single blockchain, you would get very, very slow transactions times. But with that concept you're talking about and the future development of the Pulse Chain, do you think there's going to be a need for side chains for the Pulse Chain or not? Going into the future, this is kind of speculative. So
yeah, ooh, I haven't thought of that. Just from, you know, the data that I've seen for the languages in themselves, I think it will be okay, at least for the beginning, to handle what it needs to handle. Now, if it does take off and does awesome, which I think it will, it may need that, but going forward, it is designed to be able to hold a lot.
okay, cool. And The other thing I want to ask you, since you're into like computer programming and computer science, which is absolutely awesome, I want to ask you about this concept of a BFT. It's the Byzantine fault tolerance that a
Okay.
lot of blockchains are adopting,
Mhm.
and the Avalanche blockchain and the XRP ledger and the Binance Smart Chain uses this. And from my understanding, it's basically where you have a bunch of the nodes, and if a majority of the nodes can achieve consensus, then a transaction will be approved. And it's based off of the Byzantine army way back in the day, where they would spread out all the bad generals within the army and they all attack at once. And this would basically avoid any of the bad generals from like basically attacking, betraying their army. Um, so could you kind of like could you kind of break that down for us and talk a little bit about it? And do you think the Pulse chain will adopt something like that?
That's a great question. So I have actually never even heard of that. I just looked it up and I
Okay.
found an article on it. It's labeled hard.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's interesting. It does say, you know, that it does go in and it decentralizes the cryptocurrencies even in themselves, which is interesting just because they're already, you know, so hopefully decentralized, right? Yeah, huh. I have actually never heard of that. And so I'm not sure if I could give a ton of information.
Yeah.
But it's
Well,
definitely something I need to look into.
yeah, no, you know, if we do something in the future, we can talk about it a
Okay.
little bit more. But I'm really curious for you to like, you know, kind of look at it
Yeah.
and talk and get your overall thoughts on it, because it's something that I came across when I was researching these layer one blockchains. Because it's one thing to sit here and say like Pulse chain is good for the environment, it's proof of stake, you know, all this other stuff. But it's another thing when you dive into the weeds and you actually look at some stuff we're talking about. And that was something I came across with a lot of these bigger blockchains that have been implementing. And it seems like they're implementing on top of their like their POS system already. And it's a really cool utility. And I wasn't sure if Rich Hart got into it, the Pulse chain, because I haven't dove into the code, and you have a huge experience with this coding. So I was interested in that. But
Yeah.
we can definitely move on. So next thing I want to talk about, do you think Richard Hart will implement a layer zero and or interoperability protocol onto the Pulse chain blockchain?
Oh, like his own
Yeah.
type of- That's a good question. Um, so you know how Pulse Chain has been delayed? I really don't think it has been, but like people are saying it's delayed. I wonder if he's going to release things that he hasn't even talked about when Pulse Chain does launch. And so I don't think I'd be surprised if he launched that. What are your thoughts?
Um, my thoughts over you know, interoperability. I think that's probably going to be the most important utility going into the future. And so if you look at a lot of these other blockchains, and you know, from like a STEM background, you can kind of compare what other people are doing. And so I think he hasn't addressed it yet because he's developing something down the road. And I think that's probably going to be the one thing that's going to make the Pulse chain successful going on to the future. And for those guys who don't know what interoperability is, it's basically like the internet for blockchains, where you can connect from one blockchain to the other. You can send like a coin from like Avalanche to the Binance Smart Chain. Even though that might not be possible right now, but that's like the goal of every single one of these blockchains. And the two big ones that we talk about is the Polkadot Relay Chain and the Cosmos IBC, which is interconnected blockchains. I think I said that right. But regardless, right now Ethereum doesn't have like an interoperability function. They use side chains and basically build bridges. And with Polygon, we saw it was just an utter mess, and the nodes on Polygon just are awful. Nothing against Polygon communities; it's still a great layer too. But overall, the experiment didn't really work out. And I think what Richard Hart will probably be doing is something on the lines of a relay chain for the Pulse chain, as a way to bring in more utility to the Pulse chain and to also grow the community. So that's what I kind of think. So
Interesting. So I know that there's lots of talk, and there are a couple of projects that are supposed to bridge that, they're not Richard Hart projects. What do you think about those?
The projects that are supposed to bridge.
Yes, from Ethereum to, and I guess there is that Pulse bridge that is in testnet currently too. So yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
So how I see it is what they're trying to do is they're trying to maintain the presence on the Ethereum blockchain as a marketing front, and then they're using the Pulse chain to basically run the coding. And so how I see it is they're just trying to find a cheaper way to execute the project, because one thing that we're seeing with a lot of these big projects is they're not moving from another blockchain, they're creating their own blockchain. Like UFO gaming is another big one that their ecosystem blew up, and they said instead of trying moving to another blockchain, because I believe they're on the Ethereum blockchain right now, I could be wrong, they decided to create their own blockchain. And another one was Tomb Finance. Have you ever heard of Tomb? So Tomb Finance is like an algorithmic protocol. It's not Terra Luna, but basically you have like something called a T share, and then you have the Tomb token, and you have the Tomb bond. The T share mints the Tomb token, and the T bond can be bought with the Tomb token to take off circulation. And one Tomb is pegged to one Phantom. And so if it's at peg, then nothing's printed. If it goes above peg, then Tomb is printed. And basically it brought over $86 million worth of total vault liquidity into the Phantom blockchain. And so what they're doing is they're creating their own like Phantom. It's like a side chain, but it's their own blockchain. So sorry, I'm going on a rant, but
That's really cool.
Yeah. So what I'm trying to say is instead of these projects making their own blockchain, they're using the Pulse chain as a way to call themselves home. And so I think that's an indicator that projects are going to be moving from the Ethereum blockchain or over to the Pulse chain, and they're utilizing that airdrop. So, but yeah, what are your overall thoughts on that?
Oh, I think it's really smart to have it just because it will bring adoption. And so it definitely could be looked at, from that marketing sense. But that's all really cool. I did not know a lot of that.
Yeah, it's very interesting because since everything's open source, you can just copy and paste, and there's a lot of smart people behind a computer. So it's a pretty cool concept. So, and kind of moving on. So DeFi, that's kind of like the place I'm at right now. I love DeFi, and I saw you were in a few DeFi protocols. One was Cult DAO. I saw you did a video on that, and I'm talking a little bit about that a little bit more later. But so this past bull run, Binance Smart Chain went absolutely bananas with DeFi. Phantom went absolutely bananas with DeFi. Do you think the same, like, and what I mean by bananas with DeFi projects, we saw a new decentralized finance project launch almost every hour on the Binance Smart Chain this past bull run. Some of them were scams, I'm not going to lie, but some of them became successful. So with the Pulse chain coming around the corner, and it's basically forking one of the biggest blockchains, do you think we're going to have this type of like DeFi craze on the Ethereum blockchain? I mean, on the Pulse chain, excuse me.
Ooh, that's a great question too. I don't think it would be a bad thing if it happened, just because, that would bring more eyes on Pulse chain. But I could also see it like being a slow start and maybe not booming and going bananas all at once.
Yeah.
But DeFi is awesome, and it's definitely like where the future's at, and also the present. So I can definitely see it, really going big.
Yeah. Curious. What's your favorite? What's your top 5 DeFi projects you like, or you're following per se? Or we can do top 3 if that's easier.
Oh my gosh, that is a good question. Let's see. Paid DeFi. Okay, so right now I do really like Cult. And I think that I think it's a funny name for some, just but yeah, I really like Cult. Oh my gosh, I'm now like blanking on all the ones that I have. I'll come back to you on that. I can't even remember, to be honest.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I think
what about you?
So my favorite ones I personally like. I'm not sure if you ever heard of Drip, but
Oh, yes. Yes, I have some drip actually.
you do? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right on, right on. Yeah, so Drip, that's actually my favorite one. Honestly, I thought it was a Ponzi scheme, and then I realized it is a Ponzi scheme, but it's one that you can't like pull your money out of. And
Uh-huh.
it actually turned out to be one of the most successful DeFi projects on Binance Smart Chain. And then so there's a guy named Forex Shark, and a lot of people compare him as like the next Richard Hart because he's doing all these crazy projects. He's actually launching something called the Animal Farm, and it's a farming and staking protocol where they take the LP pairs like between like Bitcoin and like Ethereum or BNB and BUSD, and basically they leverage it out to the Pancake Swap exchange, and they earn like yield. They sell the cake tokens for BUSD, and they take that BUSD and they pay it out to the token holders of their pigs token. And it's probably one of the most massive DeFi projects, and they're actually about to relaunch it. So I'll send you something over a little bit later. It's a really cool project. So and then my third one, I'll probably say Team Finance. So we kind of broke that down a little bit earlier, and keep in mind it's not financial bias. I'm not telling anyone to invest in these projects. Check them out, but they're pretty cool projects. So
Awesome. Oh, another one that I like is Aave. Have you heard of that one?
yes, Aave, yes. That one, oh, there's a project forking that project onto the Pulse chain.
Yes. I talked to them. I can't remember which one it is, but there is one.
Yeah. Yeah. Can you break down Aave real quick? Do you remember the project mechanics behind it? I'm kind of drawing a blank right now.
Here, I'll just look it up so I
Yeah.
can tell you exactly. Okay. Aave is a decentralized lending protocol that lets users lend or borrow cryptocurrency without going to a centralized intermediary. User deposits digital assets into liquidity pools, which becomes funds and that the protocol can lend out.
Okay. Yeah, that was fiat money.
That's yes. There we go.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's really cool. Yeah, I think those lending protocols are going to be pretty big. Same with liquid loans. Liquid loans is going to be in the mix too. So it's going to be curious to see how all that works out because I don't know. I'm not a really big fan of loans. So, but what do you think about these lending protocols? Do you think they're going to be successful on the Pulse chain?
Yeah, I think they have great potential, and it's going to be exciting to see how they do.
Yeah, cool. All right, so moving on, next one. I'm really curious. So we got a huge airdrop coming right around the corner, and anyone who owns like an ERC20 token is going to get a PRC20 on the Pulse chain. Which projects do you think are going to be very successful on the Pulse chain? And these are just just straight up ERC20 projects, not the ones that are planning on launching the Pulse chain exclusively.
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting to see what happens. What I've heard is that some of these different projects that are ERC20 that will be on PRC20 have already been talked to about it and have been asked, are you going to be like the Oracle? There are things that we are missing in the Pulse chain network. And so it's going to be interesting to see. But what I've heard is these different projects, they are waiting for Pulse chain to launch to see if they want to be a part of it. And so I have absolutely no clue if any of them will even do well, but it will be interesting. Like Oracle is an example, like we don't have one of those. And so is there going to be a project from ERC20 that's going to step up and join the PRC20? So there's lots of potential there, but we don't know if they're going to want to even be on Pulse chain. So then it's like, okay, well, this role needs to be filled, this project space needs to be filled. So who's going to do that? And who knows, maybe someone in our community will step up. Maybe someone, from around will also step up and want to do something like that. But I think launch and everything is going to be an interesting time to see if those different projects want to come and compete on PRC20.
Absolutely. And I think what's really interesting is, the concept that if you go through PulseX and you can pair up your PRC20 and you're bridged over ERC20 and do just swap there and then bridge it back over to Ethereum, I think that's what's going to be kind of like a huge game changer in my opinion. But to kind of build off of what you're talking about, in my opinion, I really see like, you know, projects like Shiba Inu. You know, they're launching like a metaverse. They have, you know, the bone, they have, it was like the Shiba staking program where they have like the bone and then the leash tokens. And if you look at some of these projects, you have to pay a massive amount of gas fees or do an insane amount of transactions, especially if you're like a metaverse project. And I think like projects like Shiba Inu, Decentraland, which has a big metaverse, Sandbox, I think these are the ones that are going to really be successful in the Pulse chain if they choose to move over. And hopefully they don't decide to go make their own blockchain like we're talking about earlier. So
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, so yeah, it'll definitely be interesting. And then I think one that we both agree is, you know, X is probably gonna be great on Pulse chain because that is an ERC20.
Great.
So cool. So which Pulse chain altcoins do you think will excel on the Pulse chain? So when I say Pulse chain altcoins, we got like liquid loans, we got fiat money. I'm just curious, like which ones are kind of like your favorite ones, or the ones that you're looking at closely? So
liquid loans is definitely one of them.
okay.
Another one of them is Power City. I think they're going to be awesome. They are going to have a front end for liquid loans that you could either decide to be fully automated or semi-automated, but then they do the whole liquid loans protocols in which one you choose. So like Haunted or Hod Pearl or Long Vacation. So I think that's going to bring lots of utility there. And also just like what other things they're doing. They're doing something called Flex, where you're able to take Hex and like trade it, but then it holds Hex. It's kind of like liquid loans, honestly, but with Hex instead of Pulse. And then let's see. I think Pulse Speak is going to be really cool. It's a Web3 social media. And, you know, I just think that's very needed in where we're at. And then also, I think Fiat's cool too. And there's so many. There are so many. I have other ones that are popping in my head, like Hocus Pocus and PulsePot. And there's just so many. And there's so many that I don't even know of either because projects keep popping up.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I actually found, I think, 12 more new projects on the Pulse chain that we're going to be covering, and it's going crazy. And a lot of these developers, they're just like former hexagons, like almost every single project. But I really like how you mentioned Pulse Speak, because that one's actually pretty big, especially with that concept of, you know, taking your ideas and actually making money off of it. So I can't remember. Oh yeah, Predict It. So are you familiar with Predict It?
I'm not.
So Predict It is where you kind of sit here and you say, all right, I think this candidate's going to win. And you go in and you buy like stock on them. And as it gets closer and the pools say like, oh, this person's most likely to win, then the price of stock goes up and you can make money off of it. And that's what like Pulse Speak is like doing, but for a whole variety of things across like the entire ecosystem. So it's absolutely cool what they're building out there. So
yeah, it's going to be a cool one. Do you have any favorite projects?
Ooh, I like, it was Power City. They're going to be doing a treasury with their protocol. Sorry, I drew a blank. So they're doing a treasury, and I think this concept of treasury, which, you know, you talked a lot about with Colt Dow in one of your videos, is going to be kind of like the future of cryptocurrency, because, you know, a lot of people like, you know, ETFs or IRAs and just like stocks that invest in everything, and that's what we're starting to see with crypto. So I think that's probably one of the big ones I'm looking at. And then Love.io, that's a cool project too. I don't know how familiar you are with them. I'm sure you've heard of Love.io, but they're peer-to-peer. their peer-to-peer transactions and their micro tipping is really, really cool. And I think that's going to bring a lot of adoption, especially through these influencers and whatnot. So
That's awesome. Yeah, I've heard a little bit about them.
oh
but
yeah.
not much.
Yeah. I mean, maybe one day we can do a roundtable with Anders. He's really big with interoperability and a lot of these like technical stuff. He's actually has the same background as you, so that'll be a pretty cool interview too.
Cool.
So
That's awesome.
Next question. This is a big one. So when do you think the pulse chain is going to launch?
Oh my gosh. So I'll give you a little backstory. So in April, I kept having dreams that it was going to launch just because I was so stressed about it. But it has not launched yet. So I don't know. I like will ask this in my videos, like for people to comment and be like, when do you think it'll launch? And I always get such a range of like, oh, well, it probably won't like launch until 2023 and all these different things. I have no clue. I think the longer it takes, it's actually okay, just because I'd rather have good code than hurried code, because I know what it is like to be a developer. And when you hurry something, it means that there will be holes. So delay is okay. I do know a lot of people are saying the code is all finished and that it's just not launching because of where we're at in the market. So if I were to put a date on it, I would probably put like around September. I think it'd be really interesting if it launched during PulseCon. But I don't think that's going to happen. So when do you think it'll launch?
I think it's gonna launch in November, and I'll tell you why. Richard Hart is obsessed with doing the hockey stick with his projects, and he always brags about how he called the top, and he definitely deserves props on that and whatnot. But the guy is so strategic, and he definitely understands how the market works. And when he called that top, he understands that a majority of the bear markets bottom out right around the November to the December timeframe. And so I think what he wants to do is wait for that time frame and then launch then, so that when we start phasing into the next bull market run, it's just going to go up like that. But I mean, September is also a good time frame too. I mean, people are getting very anxious about it, and then and I definitely agree with you. I love that saying. Good code takes time. So
yeah, it absolutely does. And it's I keep seeing all these Reddit threads. I don't know why it's always Reddit, but people are freaking out. I'm like, Kate, we just gotta chill.
Yeah.
Clearly, you're new to this, because I have had this happen so many times because I've been in crypto 3.5 years. So I have definitely seen some lows, and it's okay because they're also highs.
Oh man, absolutely. And I mean, I don't know why everyone's freaking out. We're in a bear market, so it's like,
it makes sense, right? It's not like it's out of the ordinary.
Yeah. It's like you're not gonna make life-changing money right now. You just gotta sit back and do your thing and start buying up projects. Not financial advice, but I think you get it. So
yeah,
cool. So got a few more. So do you have like a pulse chain strategy right when the launch happens? Are you going to be kind of just sitting and waiting, or like what's your strategy? Is what I'm asking.
I'll probably sit and wait just at the beginning, because I didn't get into Pulse. I only sacrificed for PulseX. So my plan is just to wait. My dad actually gave me really good advice on this for people that want to obtain more of whatever token it is to set a goal, and then you can figure out how to do that as time goes on. So I'll probably DCA into Pulse over time. My dad and I might also just do some like trade where he'll give me some of his Pulse chain. So I would really love that. But also for the goal that I have of how many coins I want, I'm sure I will end up having to buy some, which I literally have no problem with doing that. But I think that was like very important, is just setting a goal like for what you want of, PHEX and PulseX and Pulse Chain, and then other coins too, because if you believe in it, like definitely get in it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you kind of hit the nail on the head with that, and I think that's a strategy that everyone should follow. Is don't get too emotional. Just sit on the sidelines, let things play out. I can't tell you how many times where I get into a new DeFi protocol and everybody just goes in and you see this like hockey stick up, and then you're kind of sitting there, you're like, it's going to crash, and then it crashes, and then everybody starts crying, and it just turns into a mess. So
Yeah, and that's the thing about crypto is it shouldn't be emotional. Money shouldn't be emotional with that. And when you invest, you should know I might possibly lose all this. And so it is a risk. And so I think if you remove yourself emotionally from it, it's a lot easier to see those lows. And also don't check it. That also really helps too.
yep, that's what Hex was invented for. So
Yep.
awesome. So I think we're gonna wrap it up here. About to run out of time. I want to say thank you for letting me interview you today. You're an awesome not developer, but you're an awesome programmer, and you're really big in this space. And we'll definitely put your socials down below in the description. And anyone viewing this video, definitely go check out Fashioncoder.
Awesome. Kris, thanks so much for having me. This has been so fun and nice to meet you.
Yeah, definitely. Nice to meet you too. And hopefully we can do something to the future, maybe like when we get closer to the launch, and, maybe we can do like an AMA or do a live stream. That would be pretty cool. So we'll definitely see that. All right, cool.